Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which what if Naruto was banished with Kurama and built Neo Uzushiogakure with Hinata as the first queen? Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. Now let's start the fanfic. Sand bullets. Futon. Air bullets. Gaara called as he fired off several sand and wind projectiles. Naruto took a deep breath and shouted, "Sweeten, liquid bullets." The bullets collided against one another and created against one another at standstill. When the two stopped their attacks as muddy sand and water covered their arena. Naruto followed up by crying out, "Sweeten, water shockwave jutsu." Using the water already around them, he manipulated the liquid to create a giant vortex that went straight to Gaara. The sand Jinchuriki did not seem intimidated as he created a thick wall of sand to block the attack. The water shockwave slammed into the sand wall. Gaara stumbled back slightly but stood firm as he withstood the water jutsu as it drilled his wall. However, due to adding minerals into the stand to increase its sturdiness, the sand wall withstood the water shockwave attack. "It would take more than that to stop me, Naruto," Gaara warned. The blonde gave his brother in pain a challenging smirk. "Bring it, Gaara." The sand ninja nodded. "Very well." Gaara unleashed a potent amount of chakra as he clapped his hands together. Sand tsunami. A massive tidal wave of sand erupted around Gaara as it sailed towards Naruto. The blonde ninja had only one thing to say to the upcoming sand fall. "Shit." Those were the last words Naruto could utter before being overtaken by the sand. Everyone observing the fight flinched at the sheer force of the sand that enveloped Naruto. "Oh, that's going to hurt," Serafal noted as everyone else nodded. "He's going to have sand everywhere after this," Hinata said with a nervous giggle. Tayuya crossed her arms with a glare. "Then he's going to shower until he gets all of it. He is not sleeping on the bed otherwise." "That's mean, Tayuya," Hinata replied. However, the redhead shook her head. "No, it's me keeping our bed clean," she countered. Gaara looked around the area covered in his sand. There is no way that would be enough to beat Naruto, he was far too tough for that. "I know you are stronger than this, Naruto," he murmured as he and everyone else felt a spike of chakra. Suddenly an arc of lightning erupted from the sand as Naruto jumped out and landed several feet back with the Kiba blades in his hands. The two shinobi stared at one another. "Let's settle this, Gaara," Naruto finally said. "Agreed." Gaara manipulated all the sand to form a large construct in the shape of a familiar tanuki with a large drill in its right arm. "Futon. Shukaku drill," Gaara shouted. Naruto smirked as he commanded his blades as lightning danced over the cloudy heavens. "Raiden. Raryu no Tatsumaki, lightning release, lightning dragon's tornado." Naruto manipulated his chakra into wind and lightning chakra along with the natural wind and lightning into the shape of a large serpentine dragon. The two jutsus collided against one another. The two attacks nullified each other as an explosion erupted as it sent Naruto and Gaara flying back. The observers had to shield their eyes as sand and wind flew past them. When the dust settled, everyone saw Naruto and Gaara slowly get up as they walked towards one another. When they reached one another, they offered each other a handshake. "That was a good fight, Gaara. You've gotten stronger," Naruto complimented. "As have you, my friend," Gaara replied. As they approached the others, Naruto offered some small talk. "Any luck with giving Shukaku the olive branch?" Gaara sighed. "He's still resilient, but I believe his last chat with Ari has gotten to at least be willing to cooperate when Akatsuki or anyone else comes after us." Naruto nodded. He knew it would take some time before Gaara and Shukaku could truly work together. "That's better than nothing for now." As they reached everyone, Naruto thought back to how long it's been since he lived in Wave. It's been close to 6 months since Naruto was banished and around 3 weeks since the incident with the Stone of Gelul, and a bit of change has occurred since then. Ever since the incorporation of the stone into Uzu, there have been some interesting effects on the island village. The rivers were being filled with the famous minerals that made the village so valuable. The restoration crew found numerous precious stones and gems popping up all around the island. Naruto was already thinking of using the stones as bargaining chips with other countries, but once the island was fully restored and the farming and agriculture sections were set up and operational, they could several different kinds of corn, wheat, rice, beans, and other valuable crops that no one else could have access to, but themselves. He really had to thank Azazel and Ajuka for their brilliant minds, since they were the ones that set the stones in the first place. Speaking of those two, the minute they were done with the stones, they were already working on their next big projects. Azazel and Ajuka were discussing blueprints with Koyuki and the engineers of Spring Country for several crazy, yet igneous ideas. An air battalion of blimps that rain hell on any enemy below, using the crystals to power the city along with vehicles for civilians to use for travel, vehicles that could travel under the seas and work in tandem with the future fisherman division of the Uzu army when it's established, and even working on new improved chakra armors and chakra weapons. Oh yeah, those two felt like they were in paradise at the moment. One important that did occur recently was Ultir with Ari and Naruto sneaked to the Uzumaki temple to get all of the masks and to keep them away from the wrong hands. However, they noticed one mask was missing. The Shinigami mask. Naruto had a pretty good idea of who stole it, but he would have to deal with that at a later time. Everyone else had been busy recruiting more clans and villages, countries to their cause. Recently Naruto had been on 2 different missions saving the daimyo of bird and vegetable countries from attempts at their lives. And of course, the 2 daimyos were female and eagerly agreed to Naruto's desire for an alliance. Naruto had to wonder if every future female ruler he meets or saves will end up falling for him. He knew these alliances are very important, and the most common way to maintain such alliances was through political marriages. Though despite it being a political marriage, Naruto will love all of his partners with all his heart and soul, and he knew they will feel the same. Even if he is not the last male Uzumaki, he will need to ally himself with many countries to help rebuild his homeland, regardless of how many of his lost brethren he finds. The other interesting event to occur was recruiting the Fuma clan from the land of rice to their cause. After revealing to them the true colors of Orochimaru, he was able to convince the members to abandon him and join his cause. Sadly, not everyone agreed to the change and several members died in the fight that ensued. Sesame, the current head of the clan, lost her brother and several of her friends in the battle that followed. Despite the heartbreak, Sasama pressed on with the new alliance with Naruto. Sesame had been down for a couple of days, but Naruto quickly noticed that her demeanor changed after meeting a certain sand user. Naruto was considering if maybe he should get his brother in bird in a harem as well to help him understand emotions better. He had to shake his head at the amusing thought but filed it away for later. As for his powers, Naruto continued to become more proficient in using his Sharingan and his elemental abilities. Ari was constantly pushing, along with Jugo. Suigetsu helped him with his swordsmanship and Hinata helped him with his taijutsu. Everyone else each pitched in their own way. As for his yokai powers, he was getting more proficient in using new state he unlocked for his powers, but knew he may have to confront Yami if he truly wants to get full control. However, that will have to wait for a bit before he confronts his dark half. Suddenly Ultir appeared in front of the group and they all noticed her concerned look. Naruto, she said. What's wrong, Ultir? Naruto asked. This. Ultir waved her hand as several unconscious masked shinobi fell to the ground. However, there was no ordinary shinobi. Naruto recognized their masks from his father's notes. These are Root Nin. They're part of Danzo's personal secret army. Naruto noted. Where did you find them? They were scouting out the forest area just outside Wave. I caught all of them and demanded to know who sent them. They refused to answer and tried to kill themselves to die with their secrets, but I managed to stop them before they could. After getting rid of the seals on their tongues and the mental barriers set up, I got all the information about their mission. Ultir explained. They're out looking for you, Naruto. Or to be more precise, they are looking for Menma Uzuka's. He knows that you are an Uzumaki and he wants you to be part of his army. I really doubt Tsunade gave out that information so easily, Hinata said. Naruto shook his head. No, he probably listened in on the mission report from Shikamaru. What do we do? Ultir asked. Naruto looked deep in thought. Have you rewritten their memories? Ultir nodded. That and made sure to restore all of their defenses. They all think they found nothing from Wave and plan to return to Konoha to report to Danzo. Naruto nodded. Good. This is a golden opportunity to get some dirt on Danzo, he said. Everyone, minus Ari, turned to look at him in confusion. How do you plan to do that? I doubt Danzo would let random foot soldiers know anything that could incriminate him. You're right, which is why we need to follow them into the village. Now everyone looked at Naruto as if he grew two heads and a set of tails. How do you plan to get in the village with them, get the information you're looking for, and get out of there and return here with no one following you back? Tayuya demanded. Naruto gave her a cheeky grin. I have a new trick I learned from Ari. Something to replace my toad contract. The fox demon gave a fanged smile as she knew what Naruto was plotting. Nippo. 9 masked beasts. Several 9 symbols appeared above him as each one had a different kanji. The kanji were Seryu, Byako, Suzaku, Genbu, Kinja, Tenyo, Shinigami, Hokuto Senin, and Nanto Senin. However, what the group did not expect were 9 little fox kits with white masks to come out of the seal. Oh, they're so cute. Nearly every single girl in the group squealed. They're made from pieces of Aries chakra, Naruto explained. Each tailed beast has a special power. Shukuaku has his magnet release, Matabi with her blue flames, etc. Ari can manipulate pure chakra better than any of the other Biju. She can separate pieces of her own chakra and give them some sense of sentience. Hell, they can even act as shadow clones for one or both of us. Naruto then looked at the rest of the group. These guys will hide with 9 of these fools, and once they are in the village and get into the root base, Ari will take control to search the compound until we find what we can get. Everyone looked impressed at Naruto's plan. It was risky, but it could give them an advantage over Danzo. You really are a devious man, Naruto-kun. Ultir gave her future husband a sly smile. Naruto chuckled as he gave a cheeky smirk. I do my best. Underground location in Konoha, nighttime. Report, Danzo commanded to his kneeling subordinates. We regret to say that we found no sign of Menma Uzuka's in Wave Country, Danzo-sama. One of the kneeling shinobi replied. I see. Did you see anything unusual while in the country? The masked nin shook their heads. No, sir. The only activity we observed was Tazuna seemed to be away working on some project of his. Did you out what kind of project this was? Danzo inquired. No, sir. All we could learn was that it was of a personal matter to Tazuna. Danzo nodded. Very well. You're all dismissed. Once his subordinates, Danzo turned as he walked out of his compound. As he was walking away, he thought about Menma Uzuka's. That Uzumaki may have evaded him for now, but he will find him and he will get him to become part of his army. Should he resist, then he'll just eliminate him as he did to his brethren in Uzu and with the Uchiha clan. Anything that endangers the standing of Konoha is an enemy and must be destroyed. Once Orochimaru, Kumo, and Iwa finish their plans and get rid of all those currently in power, he can come in and save the village before turning it into the military power it should have been from the beginning. He just had to wait. He had plenty of time. As Danzo disappeared, several shadows rose out of the ground and formed into 9 masked foxes. The 9 foxes looked at one another before nodding and going to different directions to search the large compound. This proved to be quite the task as the compound was much larger than they had expected, but they persevered as they tried to find something incriminating on Danzo. After several more minutes of searching, one of the masked foxes found a locked door. It quickly turned into wisps of chakra and slid underneath the door and into the other side. The moment the chakra remerged into the fox, it raised its paw to reveal a seal. The seal glowed before sending out a pulse throughout the room. The masked fox was enveloped in a cloud of smoke to reveal Ari. All right, now that I'm in and cloaked, time to do some searching. Ari looked around to find several file cabinets in the room. She created 2 shadow clones as they all used another seal they had to detect and deactivate any security that may be on the cabinets. After making sure that it was safe, the 3 Ari opened the cabinets to find them filled with files. The 3 of them, this was going to take a while. Ari quickly went through each file as quickly as she could to find any dirt that she could get on Danzo. And oh boy was she finding some serious dirt. The more they read, the harder it was to suppress the boiling anger that was screaming to be let out. Oh Danzo, your sins are far wider than I or anyone else had expected. But make no mistake, you will pay for every last one. Ari growled. I think we have enough dirt on the mummy. One of the clones said in a strained tone. Ari was about to speak, but all 3 froze when they heard approaching footsteps. Someone's coming. It's time to leave. Ari could feel the others had finished their job and teleported back to Wave. The 2 shadow clones disappeared before Ari used her teleportation magic to leave, but not before making sure everything was left just as it was before she entered. Meanwhile in Konoha, any luck Jiraiya? Tsunade asked as she took a sip of her drink. Her teammate had just returned from his recent search into Menma Uzuka's. The blonde Cage hoped Jiraiya had found him, but Jiraiya responded with a shake of his head. Unfortunately no. Whoever this guy is, he is making sure he can't be found. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew I'm looking for him and is keeping a low profile for now. Tsunade sighed. I had hoped we would find him before he starts spilling out any secrets involving Naruto. Jiraiya scoffed. Trust me Haim, when news about Naruto's heritage comes out, both sides of his heritage, there's going to be a shitstorm like we've never seen before. Tsunade groaned. Don't remind me. The village is already in a cold civil war after Naruto's status was revealed. While I'm glad not everyone hated Naruto, as I can't help but feel like a failure after seeing how split my village has become. The village was already like this before you came into office, Tsunade. It was bound to happen eventually. It was just a matter of when. Jiraiya countered. Tsunade sighed. Perhaps you are right. Speaking of shitstorms, we have another problem. What is it? Shikamaru has been doing some research after he came back from his mission. He's found out about Mito and Kushina. Jiraiya facepalmed after hearing that bit of news. He let out a groan as he looked at his former teammate. What did he find out? He knows Mito was married to the Shodai Hokage, and that she was my grandmother. He knows about the Uzumaki clan. He's already put together from Kushina's time of death that she was Naruto's mother and found out that Kushina was married to Minato. Jiraiya had to bite back a curse. Leave it to Inara to figure this all out. What did you do? I asked him what he planned to do. He wanted to know why none of us were told this beforehand. He said the other rookies and especially Naruto had a right to know. I told him that some things were better left buried in the past. The Uzumaki clan was dead and its members were scattered to the 4 corners of the elemental nations. Naruto was not ready to know about his parents. If word got out about his heritage, all of his parents' enemies would stop at nothing to see him dead. Tsunade took another sip before pouring herself another cup to drink. What did he say to that? Jiraiya was curious about how Shikamaru would respond. Tsunade let out a bitter chuckle. He said that had Naruto been trained properly then he could have been prepared to face all those enemies. He also said that had Naruto found out in the worst possible way like from the Kyuubi or one of his enemies and he knew we kept this from him, he would turn his back on this village and watch it burn. Naruto would not have abandoned the village. Jiraiya denied. Was too loyal. Shikamaru replied with everyone has a limit and even someone like Naruto can only take so much before they snap. That's the big reason why we never told him. We were scared of how he would react to the news. Tsunade and Jiraiya sighed in unison at that. Deep down, both knew they didn't want to tell Naruto, because they were scared, but they didn't want to admit it. So they covered it up with the reason was to protect Naruto from his parents' enemies. While it was a valid reason, it was not the real reason why they never told him. What did he say after that? Jiraiya asked after a moment of silence. He asked me if I plan to say anything or silence him to keep this quiet. Damn. Jiraiya whistled. Tsunade nodded. I told him I had no intention of killing him, but I asked him not to say anything yet. I told him we need to reveal these secrets slowly. The village is already split as it is. If this comes out, total anarchy is soon to follow, and who knows what our enemies, both inside and out, will do. What do you plan to do now? Tsunade sighed as she got to her feet. I am going to slowly integrate the Uzumaki and Senju history back into the academy's curriculum. I don't know who took them out and barely focused on my grandfather and his clan, but I intend to fix that. The council may not like that. Tsunade scoffed. The council can go to hell for all I care. I am done failing my family, Jiraiya. I won't fail again. Not this time. What about Menma? Jiraiya asked, wondering what they should do about him. If you find him, just tell him that I want to talk to him. That's all. The Toad Sage nodded. Did you find anything else we should worry about and any updates on the Akatsuki? The Akatsuki have gone quiet. My guess. They're going to lay low until the Kyuubi possibly reforms again in 3 to 9 years. In the meantime, they'll probably bolster their forces when they eventually go after the other Biju. Tsunade nodded. That gave them some time to be ready. Anything else? Jiraiya scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, I recently got into some of my contacts in Iwa and Kumo. They're building up their forces too, Tsunade. I don't know when they'll be ready, but I know they're amassing their forces for something. Tsunade looked grimly at Jiraiya. An invasion. He nodded. It makes sense. We lost our Jinchuriki, which makes us vulnerable to both villages that have some serious grudges against us. Tsunade nodded. Do you think that Orochimaru would try and get involved in this? I would be surprised if he didn't get involved. This is the golden opportunity that he's been waiting for. He failed once, so now he will try again. Only this time he'll have 2 or more cages and possibly 4 Biju on his side. Tsunade sighed. Then we will have to bolster our forces as well. Jiraiya looked curious. What do you have in mind? I want all of the rookies from clans to have their training amped up. Both from their senseis and their clans. I will talk to them and tell them we may be facing an invasion soon. They need to get those kids ready for a war to break out. I also expect all the Jonin to get into tip-top shape as well. No more playing around from any of them. You think the kids will listen? Tsunade's eyes harden. If they want to survive, then they will have to put their differences aside for now. I will make it a direct order that cannot be ignored if I have to. Jiraiya nodded. I am also thinking it's time to complete Shizun's training. It's been on hold for far too long. Once she's done, maybe I can finally add my medical program to the academy as well. I am also thinking of taking Sakura, Ino, and Tenten as apprentices. All 3 have the potential to be a great medical ninja. They just need the right teacher. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. You sure about Sakura? She hasn't made it a secret that she hates Naruto's guts. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. Don't worry, I plan to break that brat before I put her back together. She and that Ino girl need to be humbled, and I'm the perfect one to do it. Even if I didn't teach her, she would still learn medical ninjutsu from someone once the program is integrated. Jiraiya nodded. Fair enough. I think I will let my spies keep an eye out for Menma and anything suspicious from our enemies. In the meantime, I will head back to Mount Myoboku, he stated as he got up and began walking to the window. Tsunade looked curious. What did you have in mind? Jiraiya looked back at her. I think it's time I completed my sage mode. Tsunade's eyes widen. Are you sure? After so many years? Jiraiya shrugged. It's never too late. Plus we need to be ready to fight 4 Biju and several cages. I think that warrants me completing my sage mode. Maybe you should look into it as well from your slug contract. Jiraiya remarked as he jumped off the window, leaving Tsunade to contemplate his suggestion. Kumo, how are forces looking, Darui? The fourth Raikage asked. They are looking good, sir. Everyone is training hard and pushing themselves to the limit. In a few years, we should have an army composed of mostly Jonin-level forces. Good. I want every last one of our ninjas to be at the level of a Jonin. That's the minimum requirement I expect from any of them. We don't know when the Tsuchikage or Orochimaru will be ready for the attack. Until then, we need to be as strong as possible when the day comes. Is it wise to trust them, sir? I scoffed. Of course I don't trust. They are just a means to an end. I will use our alliance to get back at the Leaf Village for their multiple offenses against us. And once that village is crumbled and I finally get my Hyuga and any other useful bloodlines, I will destroy those other two and Kumo will be the supreme power in the elemental nations. Darui nodded. Any updates on B and Yugito? I asked. According to B, she is progressing quite well. She already had control of her Biju and now they're working on her utility of the Nibi's power. I nodded. Good, I want her to be as close as possible to being B's equal by the time we are ready. Those two will be our trump cards in case of any unexpected interventions. Anything on that rogue Uzumaki? Darui shook his head. Unfortunately no, Sama. There have been no sightings of Menma Uzuka since his first appearance. The best I have heard some whispers that he was in the land of birds and the land of vegetables. However, these sightings have not been confirmed and are currently only rumors. I nodded. I want to know the moment he is sighted. I want 2 squads ready to abduct him and drag him here. If we have to use B or Yugito, then so be it. I failed to get Kushina into Kumo, but I won't fail this time. Darui nodded. Is that all, Raikage-sama? I nodded. You're dismissed. I sighed. Soon he will make Kumo the greatest in the elemental nations and then the world. He just needed to build up his forces for now. This would have all been completed much sooner had Kumo not failed to capture Kushina Uzumaki. With her genes and being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Kumo would have already had an army of super-powered soldiers. But that red-haired witch eluded their grasps. Even with the genetic material he recovered from those 2 shinobi to artificially create those 2 brats, they failed to show any signs of possessing the bloodlines abilities he desired. He got 2 promising shinobi, but they did not have what he was hoping for. Then came his failure to capture a Hyuga. Not once, but twice. But things will be different. Once he and his alliance invade Konoha, he'll have an entire clan to pick from and he will capture that Uzumaki and use him as he sees fit. Kumo will prevail against all the other villages. Iwagakure, secret prison cell. You shouldn't struggle so much, Mu. The Tsuchikage chided as he looked down at his chained captive. You're going to pay for all your crimes against my family and my clan. The captive man, Mu, snarled. If it weren't for my predecessor and myself, you and the rest of your so-called family and clan would be dead. You should feel grateful to me. Mu snorted. Oh yes. Your generosity knows no bounds. The Tsuchikage gave a strained smile. Don't worry so much. You won't have to think about anything else for very long. He reached into his robes and pulled out a piece of paper with a very intricate seal on it. The Mu's eyes widened as he recognized what type of seal that was. What are you doing with that? Oh, so you recognize this. Then again, I shouldn't be too surprised thanks to your clan's reputation. This was a gift from Orochimaru. Think of it as a test drive to see how effective it succeeds in its purpose. If it works, we will put it on the rest of your clansmen. The stone cage gave an ominous smile. If it fails, we'll just have to improve it and try again until it works. Hopefully, you won't have a mental breakdown before then. You won't get away with this, Mu warned. The Tsuchikage laughed. The thing is, we already have. No one can stop us. Not you and not that other Uzumaki. The Tsuchikage began approaching Mu as he tried to get out of his confines. The stone cage grabbed him by his cheeks and forced him to look at him. Now hold still. I was told this could be quite painful. The Tsuchikage placed the seal on Mu's forehead as it began to glow. The only thing that could be heard after that was Mu's screams of pain and anguish throughout the cavern. Aim. The masked Uchiha known as Tobi stared at Nagato, who was floating in a tube of medical fluids with a breathing mask covering his mouth as Nagato breathed slowly in and out. How is Nagato? Tobi asked as he turns to Konan, Nagato's partner. His recovery is outstanding. At this rate, he'll be back at 100% in just a few months. He won't need the device and be able to walk on his own. Tobi nodded. His clan was always a tenacious bunch, he muttered. Konan to the masked ninja. What do you plan to do now? Tobi turned to her. We need to prepare ourselves for now. Improve our abilities and skills. Our plans have hit a slight snag with the Kyuubi's death. But this is a minor setback. I have plenty of contingencies in place. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And the Biju hunting? Konan asked. It was the main reason that the Akatsuki. Tobi shook his head. We will leave them alone for now. The villages will be more guarded with their Jinchuriki. Once we are prepared and find an opportunity when the villages are vulnerable, that is when we will attack. Tobi turned around as he began to walk away before pausing and glancing back at Konan. For now, focus on making sure Nagato is fully recovered. Once he is out of that tube, I want him to work until he can use all of his Rinnegan abilities without the need for his 6 corpses. Konan nodded. As you wish, Madara-sama. Wave country. Crack. The floor under Naruto splintered into pieces as he finished reading everything that Ari had found in her infiltration mission. He hoped to have found dirt on Danzo, and oh boy did he ever. The crimes this bastard has committed could easily get half of the elemental nations to become his enemy. This bastard is going to pay. Naruto growled. This man has committed far too many crimes to be forgiven. An equally enraged Gaara said. He has caused many of us in this room to suffer due to his greed and ambition. All for his vision of Konoha. Hinata snarled in anger after reading one particular file. The gene splicing. Aiding an attempted kidnapping. Instigating a massacre. Traitorous actions against his cage and against several villages and countries. An entire war could be started if we spread this. No, Naruto replied. Everyone turned to him. They knew he wouldn't say no without a good reason. At least not yet. Naruto elaborated. We need to draw him out somehow into the open. When we have him on the run, that's when we will spring all of this. We will corner his escape routes until he no options left. How do you plan to do that? Ari asked. Naruto gave her a dark smirk. Oh, we have several ways, Ari-chan. We just have to be patient. Until then we all have to get stronger, and when Uzu is ready to reveal themselves to the world, that is when we will make our move against him and our enemies. Naruto turned to see everyone nodding in agreement. Danzo, Orochimaru, Kumo, Iwa, they will learn to never cross an Uzumaki. To do so means to invite death. And we will bring death to them, he remarked darkly. A dark cloud seems to have fallen over Konoha, Iwa, and Kumo as Danzo, Orochimaru, and the Tsuchikage all felt a chill go down their spines. I hate this damn heat, Naruto grumbled. The sun blazed from the skies above as the disguised blonde and his companions trekked along their path as large carriages passed by them. Oh, don't be such a prude, Naruto-kun. I gave you those cooling seals to help against the heat. Ari playfully retorted. Even seals seem to have their limits when fighting off the natural rays of the sun, Naruto replied. The vixen rolled her eyes. Quit your complaining, Kit. We need to keep your identity a secret for now. Besides, remember you are doing this as a favor to Gaara. Yeah, I know, Naruto replied as he replied. Things had been going rather smoothly after the infiltration of Konoha. Naruto and everyone discussed everything they found and agreed it's best to keep this information tight-lipped until they build Uzu back to a strong enough force to reply to the backlash that will result from this information coming out. It was just about a week ago that Gaara sent a message that he has a mission for him. It was a simple escort mission to bring the crown prince of the Crescent Moon Kingdom, Michiru and his son, Hikaru, back to his home country. Michiru had agreed for Gaara to choose his escorts and to form a legal alliance between the Sand Village and his allies. It was not an opportunity that could be passed up to gain another ruler and country on their side. Michiru was rather polite and friendly when they first met, though his son was rather cold and distant towards them, especially Naruto Menma. The first thing the brat did was try to shoot a toy arrow at his forehead, but Naruto caught it before it reached his head. The kid was surprised before scoffing before telling his dad that they were somewhat useful. Needless to say, Naruto and the others were not amused. Naruto especially had to fight the urge to groan that he had to deal with another spoiled brat. Why did this keep happening? Heads up, Naruto. Naruto looked up to see several bandits traveling across the rock structure they were passing. Let's take care of them, Naruto ordered as he and his team disappeared as they engaged the bandits. The following few days were relatively simple with Naruto and the girls guarding the prince and his carriages while fighting off random bandits. Naruto and the girls were rather bored as hell as the enemy bandits were laughably weak. Hell, an experienced genin team similar to Team Guy could handle off these bandits without much trouble. The group had stopped at a rather large town to watch an animal circus show. Naruto was actually curious to watch as he had never been to a circus before in his life. So he was interested in seeing the show. The other girls had no issue with this and they could still keep an eye on the prince while also enjoying the show. Naruto was completely enthralled by the show as he had never seen anything like this before. The girls giggled as they saw the look in his eyes from his mask. He looked so adorable in their eyes. And now the moment you have waited for has arrived. May I introduce you all to the stars of our dear circus? The fierce saber-toothed tiger, Chamu, and the majestic white tiger, White Blaze, exclaimed the announcer to the audience. The spotlights landed on the two new arrivals. One was a light gray saber-toothed tiger with a bright red vest. The other was another feline that was similar in height, but slightly bigger. It was a breathtaking tiger with fur as white as snow with ebony black strips going across its entire body. Naruto's entire body stiffens the moment he saw the white tiger. And now their beloved partner Kiki. The announcer shouted as a small monkey appeared on top of Chamu's head. The girls giggled at the cute monkey, not noticing how quiet Naruto had become next to them. Whoa, they're amazing, Hinata complimented. The other girls nodded in agreement. Yeah, they really are, Tayuya said. What do you think, Naruto? Naruto. Tayuya turned to her crush and saw him continue to stare at the white tiger. Tayuya turned to the other girls to see them just as confused and worried. Naruto? Ari asked. However, Naruto continues to ignore them as he continued to stare at the white tiger. He flinched when he felt a hand to his cheek. He turned to see Hinata and the other girls looking at him in concern. Naruto-kun, are you okay? Hinata asked in a worried tone. Naruto shook his head. Sorry, it's just I got a weird feeling from that white cat. This caused the girls to look at him in confusion. What do you mean? Ari asked. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I don't know, just that I feel connected to it somehow. The girls decided to drop the conversation for now and watch the show continue as the tigers and chimp continued their team performance. Then Hikaru got into it as he shot an apple off of Kiki's head. The announcer was surprised but decided to improvise and include the act into the show. He proclaimed a challenge for Hikaru to shoot the apple off Hikaru's head while Chamu is moving him around. The announcer promised a wonderful prize. White Blaze stood in the middle as he watched the events unfold. Unsurprising, Hikaru managed to shoot the apple, much to the joy and applause of the crowd. Even Naruto had to clap at Hikaru's accuracy. That was amazing, young lad. The announcer exclaimed. Hikaru nodded. Thank you. Now, how can I reward you? Hikaru pointed at the tigers and monkey. That, he said. What? The announcer asked in confusion. I want this circus, Hikaru said in a resolute tone. Everyone blinked a few times before their jaws collectively dropped to the ground. EHHHHHHHHH. Sometime later. I still can't believe he bought the whole circus, Tayuya said in shock and annoyance. I guess this is what it's like to be rich and spoiled, huh? Naruto replied. Glad I never turn out like that, Hinata said out loud. S2. Everyone said in unison. The group looked on as they noticed Hikaru approaching Chamu. Hikaru lifted an apple to Chamu's jaws. Here. Chamu glared at Hikaru as it growled. Hikaru flinched in fear as Chamu rose and lunged at the boy. Watch out! Several people shouted out. However, a black quickly grabbed Hikaru just as Chamu swiped his claws. Chamu and everyone turned to see Naruto holding Hikaru. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Chamu growled in anger. But one quick wave of Ki from the masked Naruto caused the saber tooth to stop his current actions. I apologize. Chamu has never been very close to any humans. The head carny tried to explain before he lifted by his collar by a very angry Michiru. What the hell were you thinking of allowing him to be free if he's so aggressive? I promise, I will take care of it. I will put him in a cage and have him constantly monitored. Naruto sighed as he looked down at Hikaru. You okay? He asked. The aforementioned boy blushed a bit before pushing away from Naruto and running off. Naruto shook his head in disappointment. Baka, did you think they would like you just because you bought them? Naruto turned to see Michiru approaching him with a worried expression. Hello, Menma-san. What's wrong, Michiru? The crown prince scratched the back of his head before replying, I would like to make one more stop before taking the boat back to my country. The stop is in the same town where the ships will be docked. Naruto raised his eyebrow at this. However, why the request in the first place? Where will you like to stop? Naruto asked. I would like to stop by the home Hyakuru's mother. So, that was the reason. I see. That is fine. As long as it doesn't delay us too much. Michiru nodded in appreciation. Thank you, Menma-san. Naruto nodded as he and his group walked to their campsite, but the masked blonde noticed a certain white feline watching him. A few days later at the port city, Naruto held back a flinch from the slap Michiru received from his former wife, Ameo, and slammed the door to his face. Well, that could have gotten better, Naruto muttered. Yeah, I kinda feel sorry for him, you know. Hinata said in sympathy. Sadly, his married life isn't part of the mission. We should focus on getting them home, Tayuya replied as Naruto and the others nodded as they turned to get back on the carriage as they continued their route to the port. A few hours later, out in the seas. Go, Prince, go, one crew member shouted. Haha, I'm so happy. This makes me forget every negative thing that's happened to me right now. A red-faced Michiru cheered. Well, he seems to be in a cheerful mood now, Naruto said aloud. The wonders of alcohol. He proceeded to take a bite out of his ham dinner. Thankfully, Naruto could remove the bottom part of his mask to allow him to eat. Alcohol has always been a comfort drink. Why do you think Tsunade drank herself silly of it? Hinata asked in amusement, with the others chuckling in response. She got that from her grandfather. Along with his obsession with gambling. Though Hashirama was at least good at it. Ari explained. Everyone looked surprised by that revelation. Huh, that's something new to learn. Hinata joked. Never expected that from the second man to be called the second god of shinobi, Tayuya said in a stunned tone. Expect the unexpected, Naruto replied. The girls nodded. Point. Naruto chuckled at the conversation as he was about to take another bite. He saw Hikaru following Kiki to the cages. The disguised shinobi decides to ignore it for now. Later that night, Naruto was patrolling the exterior of the ship. He paused at the bow of the outside deck. He saw a large number of cumulus clouds as thunder rumbled with lightning flashing from the black heavens. A shiver went up Naruto's spine. A storm. He murmured. He quickly turned and rushed back into the ship to warn everyone. We need to prepare. It took Naruto a few minutes to warn everyone of the storm as the carnival workers quickly got up to move most of the animals to safety from the storm. Michiru was stuck in bed with seasickness, so he was no help. Naruto grunted as he was slammed into the wall by the ship tilting to the side due to the strong waves hitting the hull of the ship. Shit, this storm is strong. I need to do something, Naruto muttered as he got up. Who cares about them? Naruto turned to the voice speaking. Hikaru looked down with a frown on his face. Excuse me? Naruto asked. Hikaru looked at him. They're just some dumb animals. Who cares about them? I don't. They can just go away. Hikaru then quickly felt himself being lifted into the air by an angry Naruto. You literally just bought them and now you don't want them just because they weren't being nice to you. And you're not willing to do anything to change their mindset. Naruto growled as he looked at the kid in disappointment. He expected more, but this kid and his dad simply think they could get anyone to like them if they throw them gifts and money. He sighed as he let go and began to walk away. How much? Hikaru finally asked. Naruto turned to look at him in confusion at his question through his mask. What? Naruto asked. How much will I have to pay you to make you my friend? Naruto shook his head as he looked at Hikaru. You are too naive and blind to the world, Hikaru. You can buy objects, but you can't buy people's friendships and make them instantly like you. You have to work for it. Something both you and your father need to learn. Suddenly another crash causes Naruto to rush outside to see everyone hectically trying to get all the animals to safety. Naruto quickly summoned several clones to help everyone. Naruto then noticed Hikaru rushing towards Chamu and White Blaze, whose cages were beginning to fill with seawater. Hikaru managed to reach their cages and open them to let the two giant cats leap out. However, the fierce storm slammed another wave onto the boat and nearly caused Hikaru to fall overboard as he saved Kiki from being washed away. Thankfully, Chamu managed to grab Hikaru before he fell off the ship. However, the strong breeze caused Chamu to lose his grip and begin falling into the dark waters. Naruto, acting quickly, managed to get to Chamu and grabbed him by his tail and began pulling with White Blaze also helping pull his fellow feline. Naruto sighed in relief to see the three safe. Naruto looks at White Blaze to see the cat watching him intently. Naruto quickly creates a few clones to keep the four safe, while the original Naruto goes to the bow of the ship as he raised his arms to the air and used his chakra to keep himself in place. What is he doing? A worker shouted. Hinata, being the closet, realized what Naruto was about to do. Trying to stop the storm. Hinata exclaimed. How? The worker shouted. You'll see. Hinata replied back. Meanwhile, Naruto felt his chakra envelop his body in a dark blue aura as it rose into the air. This is the first time I have tried something like this. I hope I can handle this. Naruto thought as he began to close his hands as if he was trying to squeeze something. Suddenly, the workers began to notice that the waves began to slow down and the powerful gusts of wind began to get weaker. Naruto's face under the mask began to contort in pain as the strain of manipulating the weather was taking its toll. Blood oozed out of his nostrils, eyes, and ears as he clenched his teeth in pain. A loud ringing echoed across his ears, his stomach was doing backflips, and he felt as if his body was spinning as he felt dizziness envelop his senses. Naruto refused to let the pain set him back. He will accomplish his goals and a storm will not stop his ambition. He gave a mighty roar as a final blast of chakra erupted out of his body as it rose into the air as a shockwave across the black stormy heavens. Soon the heavy rain and thunderstorms began to stop as the winds died down and seas became calm again. The clouds began to depart as the rays of the sun began to pierce through the disappearing dark clouds. Everyone looked on in awe at what they had just seen. He actually did it, Tayuya said in amazement. She never expected that to work as Naruto had never tried to control something as big as a storm. It took manipulating the wind, water, and lightning elements at the same time. An incredibly difficult task to accomplish, but Naruto has a knack for doing crazy shit. He's amazing, Hikaru said in awe as he stared at Naruto's back. Meanwhile, the disguised blonde was panting heavily as his body shook from exhaustion. Well, what do you know? I did it, Naruto murmured in a pleased tone before darkness began to overcome his vision as he fell flat onto the ship. Menma, everyone exclaimed as they rushed to his side. Ari was the first to reach him as she checked his pulse and vitals. How is he? Ari sighed as she looked at everyone. He's fine. Just really exhausted. Everyone nodded in agreement. I can imagine. This was the first time he's done something like this. Hinata said. Let's get him inside so he can rest these next few days, Ari explained as Hinata and Tayuya helped lift Naruto and walk him to his cabin room. In the next few days, Naruto would remain in bed as the girls took care of him until they reached their destination. On another note, Chamu and Kiki became very attached to Hikaru, while White Blaze was rather affectionate towards Naruto. This event also led to Hikaru and Naruto becoming friends as the group finally reached their destination. Welcome to my home, Michiru exclaimed happily as the group unloaded from the huge ship. But something was off. The streets were completely empty. No one was outside, walking around, and the only voice they heard was from an ad for the island's famous casinos. This place looks deserted, Naruto said out loud. How odd. People are usually walking around during this time of the day. Michiru commented from his carriage. The four ninjas took notice of several individuals watching them from afar. Something is very wrong here, Naruto muttered as he looked to see that the girls were just as tense as he was. The four continued to stay sharp as they trekked along the path to the castle. A few minutes later, kill them, Shabadaba ordered. I hate being right, Naruto mentally groaned as he and the others were surrounded by castle soldiers. Apparently, the minister was attempting a hostile takeover and had gotten rid of the current king, Michiru's father. Now he was going after him and Hikaru and extinguishing the royal bloodline. Naruto felt like pulling his hair out in frustration. How does he keep getting dragged into these situations? This the fourth or sixth time he had to fight a tyrant or someone starting a coup. Seriously, why does that keep happening to him? Girls, hit them hard and keep them away from Michiru and Hikaru, Naruto ordered. Hi, they replied. Each girl attacked one side of the surrounding soldiers as Naruto kept close to Michiru and Hikaru. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Around 20 clones of Naruto appeared as they lunged towards the castle soldiers. One foolish soldier tried to cut down Naruto to get to the prince and his son, but Naruto was not someone to underestimate. The masked ninja brought out his Raijin no Ken and pumped chakra into it as a light blue beam of chakra hummed to life in the shape of a blade. With one swing, Naruto cut through the blade and the arm of the unlucky. The soldier was about to scream in agony as blood oozed out of his wound if Naruto had not quickly slit his throat to silence him for good. Aghhhhh. Michiru shouted in terror. Naruto took the stunned look of the soldiers to quickly take them out as he turned to the prince, or was he the king now? You need to get out of here, Michiru. Get into the carriage and go. Naruto roared. Michiru flinched before nodding quickly and getting himself and his son into the carriage. Go now, Naruto ordered the driver as he cut another soldier down. The carriage nodded rapidly as he turned the horses back to the front gate. Arg! Naruto turned to the shout as the carriage driver was thrown off the carriage and the soldiers were breaking into the carriage. Naruto glared at the soldiers. Get away from that, Fuden. Wind scar. Naruto roared as he slashed the air with his blade and causing a powerful torrent of wind blades that ripped the soldiers into chunks of sliced flesh and clothes. Ah! The woman next to the minister screamed in horror with the soldiers looking just as disgusted and horrified. Naruto quickly got to the carriage as he turned to the disturbed audience. If you want them, you'll have to go through me. But anyone that comes near them, better be ready to die. Naruto warned darkly as chakra erupted out of his body in an aura around his body as he released a potent amount of Ki that caused many of the soldiers to falter and move back. No one made a move until crash, boom. Everyone turned to the gates to see them torn down as a black, Reinforced carriage charged in as a man in his mid-30s jumped from the carriage and charged to the carriage holding Michiru and Hikaru. Korega, kill the traitor. The minister shouted. The now named Koga paused as he was about a foot away from the carriage as he glared at the minister. You dare call me a traitor? The traitor here is you. Korega growled. Naruto turned to the man as the group had found a potential ally. Take the carriage and go. We'll cover for you, Naruto ordered. Korega quickly nodded as he got on the carriage. Understood, Korega said as he began driving the carriage out of the palace. Naruto turned to the girls. Time to go, girls. Hi, stop them, Shabadaba ordered just as the two carriages reached the busted gate with the girls on each side of the carriages. Naruto was bringing up the rear as he stopped to turn and see the approaching mob of soldiers. He performed a few hand signs and shouted, Fuden, Datapa. A powerful blast of wind erupted from Naruto's lips as the gale blasted the soldiers down and giving Naruto and the others time to leave. Ho, they are impressive, said a man watching the events unfold before him and his allies. Meanwhile, with Naruto's group, I am glad that we have powerful allies such as yourself, Korega said in gratitude to Naruto's group. Naruto nodded. You may call me Menma. Now tell me, where are we going now? We're heading towards the mountains. That's where my allies and I have settled into as a base. The group traveled for several minutes until they were near the mountain ranges of the island. They stopped at the entrance of a small cave. Michiru and Hikaru got off the carriage and rushed into the cave to find another soldier guard and an elderly man laying down on a makeshift bed. Papa, Grandpa, the prince and his son shouted. Korega and the others entered to see the two crouching down at the now identified king of the kingdom. Naruto turned to Korega. Korega-san, may you explain what exactly is going on? Korega nodded. The chief minister, Shabadaba, and the king had recently clashed over future policies between our kingdom and other countries. The king hoped that they could come to a peaceful understanding. The castle soldiers sighed in anger. Sadly, the ministers had no such intention and secretly plotted to overthrow him. We overheard their plot and warned the king. His Majesty was distressed things had devolved to this, but had decided to deal with the ministers. He then looked at Michiru and Hikaru. As a precautionary measure, he sent Prince Michiru and Hikaru out of the country on the pretense of visiting other countries and improving relations with them. Michiru looked at his father in distraught. We were hoping to settle before you arrived back, but the chief minister had planned ahead and hired mercenary shinobi to reinforce his power. We barely managed to get out safely, but the king. Korega gritted his teeth as the guard near the king's bed lifted his blanket to show the king's wound. Everyone's eyes widened in shock and confusion. What the hell? Naruto whispered. Somehow, the left side of the king's body was turned into stone. What kind of jutsu could turn a person into stone? Naruto's eyes narrowed. They needed to be careful for whatever these shinobi may have. The group turned to the king as he began to groan. Grandpa, Papa, Your Majesty. Michiru, Hikaru, and the soldiers asked in unison. The king opened his eyes as he looked at his son and grandson. Michiru, Hikaru, he said slowly. Korega then explained the current situation to the king. The king nodded in understanding. I see. I must thank you for protecting my family, he said to Naruto and his group as they nodded towards the king. At this rate, our country will fall to the rebels, Korega said in regret. King looked up to the ceiling in sadness. I see. Michiru. The king said as his son looked at him. What do you think of your country? Michiru looked confused before he answered. It's my home. It's prosperous and beautiful thanks to you being its leader. The king hummed in thought. I see. Sadly, I don't think that alone will ensure its survival. What do you mean? Michiru asked in confusion. Smiles, hope, dreams, a land overflowing with compassion, peace, and kindness. That is the country I envision creating. The king sighed in regret. Regrettably, Shabadaba did share my vision. Michiru shook his head in frustration. I don't understand what you mean. You sound like Ameo. You went to see her. The king asked as Michiru nodded. Hi. She says I don't understand what is truly precious, Michiru explained. The king chuckled. As shrewd as always. I hope that her constant harping will get through to you. Little did I know she would tire of you first. I have caused all three of you so much grief. And that will be my biggest regret. How sorry I am for that, Michiru. Hikaru. He said in a regretful tone. Michiru. I wish for you to hear my last request. Wait. Papa. Michiru shouted with tears in his eyes. Grandpa. Hikaru said with tears also flowing down his face. Michiru, you must inherit the throne, King said as he turned to Naruto. Menma-san. Naruto walked close to the king. As my last request, please protect my son and grandson. Naruto nodded as he intended to settle this for good. You have my word. Thank you. The king looked at Michiru one last time as his eyes began to close. Michiru. I am counting on you. Papa, Grandpa. Michiru and Hikaru screamed in pain and sorrow. The soldiers all bowed their heads as tears fell down their cheeks. Naruto and his crew bowed their heads in respect of the now dead king. Later that night, Hikaru and Naruto are sitting on a rock as they looked up to the breathing night sky that was filled with hundreds of stars. My grandfather was always kind to me. He was the one to get me into archery. Hikaru said after a bit of silence. Naruto hummed in thought. Did you understand your grandfather's words? Hikaru shook his head. Then let me give you my best interpretation. The heart of a nation is not the location itself or its king. It's the people. The people are what make a country, and without them, a country is nothing. A ruler is the same. For a nation to prosper, then the people must be happy. Hope, dreams, love, compassion. These are things that the king should be able to fill all his people and vice versa. Together in perfect unison, they can help the country grow and become a prosperous and beautiful place. Naruto explained as he pointed at Hikaru's heart. It's about the heart, Hikaru. I had someone that was like a grandfather to me. Though I have my issues with him, he left many things to me and the people of my former village, or at least the ones that will follow his ideal. I believe your grandfather wants the same for you and Michiru. Can I really follow the ideals that my grandfather tried to pass on to me? Naruto nodded. You can, but to do so you must believe in yourself to do so. But can I? Naruto stuck his pinky out to Hikaru. When I have my country and you are king, we'll still be friends. I promise. Hikaru looked at the appendage before he shook it with his only pinky as he smiled up to Naruto as he chuckled in amusement. Sometime later the group is discussing their plans to take down the minister. Sadly, our military is too weak to fight the minister. We don't have enough soldiers to fight the army. Kurama explained. We have to evacuate Michiru and Hikaru from the country. So long as they are alive, the throne will still exist. Once they're out, we'll bolster our forces to attack the minister. Naruto did not like the plan but knew he would be overruled and it was better to get Michiru and Hikaru out of danger before getting rid of the minister. The group traveled to the shores of the island to get the prince and son to a boat to get them off the kingdom and to a safer location. I still don't like this, Naruto muttered quietly. Tayuya smacked his shoulder. We'll have to deal with it, Naruto. Naruto nodded, but he still didn't like this plan as it could easily fail. Anything yet, Kurama? Naruto asked before the commander raised his arm to stop everyone. There, just near the shore, a boat could be seen approaching. There's the boat. Let's move. Kurama rushed to the boat as another castle soldier got off the boat. We have a boat waiting for them just outside the bay, the soldier explained. Kurama nodded as he sent a message to everyone that was hiding. Everyone began to quickly rush to the boat, but Hikaru began to slow down as he turned to see his dad falling behind. Come on, Papa, Hikaru cried out. Michiru was panting and wheezing as he tried to catch up to everyone else. Wait! He cried out before falling onto the sand. Come on, Michiru, one of the soldiers said to the wheezing prince. Naruto shook his head in exasperation. We're so putting you on a diet after this is over, Michiru. Suddenly Naruto and Ari heard something flying through the air before a kunai landed near them. Both of their eyes widen. Move. Both shouted as everyone jumped away with Naruto grabbing Michiru. Boom. When the smoke cleared, there were 3 shinobi just a few feet away from him. You guys are really stupid. Did you really think you sneak away like that? A short woman with long spiky hair called Kalanbana said. The coast is heavily monitored at all times. We also know about that boat outside the Bay Area. The shinobi to the left known as Ishidate lectured. Hand over the kid and his father. Ishidate ordered. Naruto growled as he stepped forward. You won't have either of them, Naruto swore. Ishidate seemed to find this amusing as he began to chuckle. Ho! Don't get too cocky, brat. Ishidate suddenly disappeared in a blur. Naruto's eyes widened as he quickly turned around to block a punch from Ishidate. The man then followed up with a swift roundhouse kick that sent Naruto skidding backward a bit. Naruto looked to Ishidate gone again and then appeared right above him. He began to unleash a flurry of punches and kicks, but Naruto was able to dodge or block each hit. However, Naruto noticed something was off. His attacks were too sluggish and his body felt heavier than before. Naruto jumped back as Ishidate grinned at him. So you have some skill. At least this won't be boring, he said in an amused tone. Naruto growled. You 3 won't live to see another sunrise. Ishidate chuckled. I wonder about that. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Suddenly the brute known as Kongo borrowed in and slammed a fierce haymaker that sent Naruto flying back. Ishidate was chuckling before jumping back to dodge a surprise attack from Ari. You won't be laughing for long. Ishidate smirked. We shall see. Meanwhile, Hinata and Tayuya were fighting off Kalabana. The other members of the team began to feel the same issues that Naruto was noticing. Naruto coughed as he got up. Damn it. Poison, he growled in annoyance as he was slammed into the rock wall near the shore. The explosion released an odorless poison you all breathed in. You won't be able to fight at your best for some time. Ishidate explained. The team narrowed their eyes at the inconvenience they were feeling at the moment. Ishidate lifted his right arm that had some kind of glove on it. The back of the glove opened to reveal a blood-red eye. He quickly dashed towards Ari, who barely managed to dodge as a piece of her clothing was caught. The vixen's eyes widened as she saw her clothes began to turn into stone. She quickly cut it off before it spread any further. Ari's eyes narrowed as she saw the clothing that was turned to stone. That was no genjutsu, and it was likely this was how the king was killed. This is no genjutsu. And just like the king, you will have a similar fate. Ishidate said. Suddenly Kurama tried to attack Ishidate with his sword, but the hired shinobi easily dodged it. You won't touch the prince or his son, Kurama swore. Ishidate chuckled in amusement. I wonder about that, Kurama. Ishidate pointed at something behind him. Kurama turned to see Michiru surrounded by armored soldiers on horseback. Someone help. Michiru cried out. Prince Michiru ga. Kurama began to shout before he was captured by Ishidate as he was turned to stone. Everyone's eyes widened in horror. Captain Korega. Everyone screamed. Kongo took this opportunity to jump towards the boat that Hikaru managed to get to and knocked out the soldiers that were there. Kongo gave Hikaru a creepy smile. You're mine now, kid. Suddenly an incredible blast of chakra caught everyone's attention. From the sand and rock, Naruto walked out covered in a black and blue aura as lightning danced around his body. One thing was clear in the mind of the girls: Naruto was pissed. The masked blonde disappeared in a blur and appeared right above Kongo and sent him flying back to the shores with a strong roundhouse kick. Kongo. Kalanbana screamed in concern for her fellow shinobi. Kongo was crawling away in fear, but something suddenly grabbed him by the back of his head and lifted him up. It was Naruto with his other arm crackling with electricity. Where are you going? Naruto asked darkly. You're not leaving. Chidori. Naruto plunged the lightning jutsu through his back and out his chest. Kongo was dead instantly. That's for making Hakiru cry, Naruto said darkly as he ripped his arm off and flicked the blood off his arm. Kongou. The two mercenaries shouted, but Ishidate had no time to react as Ari quickly lopped his head off his body. Kalanbana used a shunshin and began to surround Naruto in a giant torrent of petals. Naruto growled as he began to get cut in different areas of his body. You can't touch me, Kalabana mocked. Naruto growled as he performed a few hand signs. Fuden. Datapa. Naruto's gust of wind blasted away all the petals and sent Kalabana landing hard on the ground. Before she got up, Naruto appeared right in front of her and stabbed her through the head. Now we're done. Naruto turned to see the girls approaching him with Michiru trailing behind. Done there as well? He asked. They all nodded. Though you killed our opponent, Naruto. Those soldiers were too easy for Hinata and me. Not cool. Tayuya whined with Naruto and the other two girls chuckled in amusement. The four then turned to a sullen-looking Michiru. You know what comes next, right, Michiru? The prince nodded. Now I must take back my kingdom. Hikaru nodded in agreement. I have a plan, Naruto said as he began to explain his plan. One of the loyal castle soldiers grabbed Naruto by his collar. Are you insane? You would endanger our prince like that? He roared with Naruto not even flinching. Michiru stayed quiet for a few more seconds before looking at Naruto. Let's do it. The soldiers looked at the prince in shock. But Michiru. The prince raised his hand. We need to end this soon. I can't anyone else suffer anymore from Shabadaba's actions. Sometime later, Shabadab was forcing Michiru to walk a plank so he could fall and hang himself. Ishidate and his crew explained that Hikaru was killed, along with the hired shinobi. All that was left was for Michiru to die and no one could oppose the minister. As Michiru walked towards the edge of the plank, he could practically see the entirety of his kingdom as it was bathed by the beautiful rays of the sunset. Michiru's eyes widened as the words his father spoke came back to him. It's beautiful, Papa. He murmured. What's the point of all this? Ishidate asked. It feels like a waste of time. Shabadab scoffed at his hired shinobi. Entertainment. I couldn't kill him right away. The minister would have continued if he did not begin to hear something. He looked outside to see the animal circus approaching the front of the castle. Leading the circus was a young woman with raven hair in a bun with a long white scarf covering her face as her clothes consisted of a black and white yukata. What's this? The circus bunch. Who let them in? Shabadaba asked before looking at his hired help. Ishidate. Do something. The red-haired shinobi shrugged. As you wish. Ishidate quickly used a kunai to cut Michiru free before knocking out the minister's wife with one chop to the back of her neck. The minister looked at the man as if he had lost his mind. What are you doing? He shouted at him. Ishidate began to chuckle. Why stopping you? Ishidate said as he was covered in a plume of smoke and out came a masked Naruto. You've lost Shabadaba. The minister began to walk back in fear as he turned to Kongo and Kalanbana, but both revealed themselves to be Tayuya and Hinata. I won't wham. The minister was cut off as he was slugged by Naruto and knocked out cold. Michiru and the disguised woman, who happened to be Ari with Hikaru in hand, appeared to the group. We have won, Naruto announced. Michiru and Hikaru bowed in appreciation. Thank you, Menma-san. I didn't understand everything my father was trying to teach you. But I think I am starting to understand what it means to be a king and to govern a country. Naruto smiled towards the prince. No, the new king of the kingdom. Well, it's a start. I won't forget today. What everyone did for us, they did their best for us. We all joined forces to protect what's important to us. Our friends. I won't ever forget. Hikaru said as he extended his pinky, which Naruto happily shook along with Michiru as everyone looked on with smiles. Several days later. Ah, this is life, Naruto said as he sat on a chair in his swimming trunks as he enjoyed the view of the beautiful ocean. Naruto and his group decided to take a mini vacation as they thought it was time to sit back and unwind a bit. Michiru said they were happy to stay as long as they liked and bring as many people as possible. So Naruto decided to invite all of their allied clans and friends to the island resort kingdom. Needless to say, everyone jumped at the chance of going to the Crescent Moon Kingdom. Jugo was enjoying the tranquility along with Hinoka. Tazuna was drinking and having one hell of a party. Some members of the Leviathan and Sitri clans were playing some volleyball. Karen, Suigetsu, and nearly everyone else was enjoying the beautiful seas. I am so glad we get a few weeks off to enjoy this. Kankuro sighed as he sat in his chair. The puppeteer then turned to see Naruto staring at something with drool coming out of his mouth. He turned and immediately understood why. All of the girls in Naruto's current harem were wearing some very sexy swimwear. Hinata was in a one-piece orange and black suit that complemented her body quite well. Ultir was wearing a violet and black two-piece. Serafal had similar wear that was black and blue. Toki was in a violet two-piece. Koyuki was in a sky blue swimsuit. Haruna was in a white two-piece swimsuit, and finally Ari wore a black and crimson two-piece. I see you enjoying the view, Naruto. Kankuro teased. Naruto blushed as he shook his head and glared at the sand ninja. Shut up, Kankuro. Kankuro chuckled as he turned to his younger brother to see him staring at a familiar sound shinobi from the Fuma clan. Naruto also noticed this and both smirked. Looks like I am not the only one enjoying the view, Gaara. Naruto teased. The sand wielder's eyes widened as a faint blush appeared on his face as he glared at the snickering duo. Say anything and I will bury both of you, Gaara warned, and Naruto waved that he'll keep quiet, for now anyway. Suddenly Naruto noticed a familiar white cat approaching him. White Blaze, why are you so attached to me? He asked in wonder as to why he and this cat felt so connected. When Naruto patted the tiger's head, he suddenly jolted as a vision suddenly flashed before his eyes. A vision of the Inferno armor. Naruto's eyes widened as he shook his head as he looked at the tiger staring at him. Just what was the connection between White Blaze and the armor? He'll have to ask Ari and see if there are any records that could tell him. For now, they'll enjoy the peace they have now. A few days later, it was time for everyone to get back home. Gaara and his siblings had already left as they had business to return to. Michiru shook hands with the unmasked blonde. I hope you are fortunate in your endeavors. Naruto. Naruto smiled as he had explained his plan with Michiru, who said they would have his full support. Likewise to you, Michiru, Naruto said as he looked towards his son. I'll see you again soon, Hikaru. Promise, Ni-san? Hikaru asked as Naruto nodded. Promise. Naruto stepped back as he put back his mask as everyone disappeared in a flash of light. Michiru, Hikaru, and the guards were left staring out into the deep blue ocean. I was thinking that after things have settled down, we go get your mother, Hikaru. I finally understand what is truly precious and fighting for what matters most. And to never give up and never lose sight of it. Hikaru looked stunned before smiling in excitement. Yeah. Later that night in the land of waves. Hello again, Hikari. Yummy, Naruto said to Naruto. You haven't spoken to me in a while. I thought something happened to you. Naruto replied. Ah, Hikari is worried about me. How sweet. Yummy said in a false happy tone. Naruto gave him a blank stare. Piss off. Now, what do you want? I doubt this is a social call. Yummy's mischievous face became a serious scowl. No, it's not. The time has come to settle things, Hikari. Naruto blinked in confusion. What do you mean? I mean it's time we fight, Hikari. I will give you 1 month to get ready. In 1 month we'll have our fight and we'll see if you are ready to have access to the other half of your power. Naruto narrowed his eyes. And if I lose? Yummy shrugged. You won't get access to the rest of your power. And I may take over your body. Simple. Yummy said. You won't take my body, Naruto promised. Yummy gave Naruto a very chilling smile. We'll see about that. Naruto sighs as he relaxes in his meditative state. He truly has come to enjoy these sessions as it allows him to unwind and let his mind relax and let all the stress he has built just release from his body. It had been a month since his mission at the Crescent Moon Kingdom and Yummy's warning that they will fight for him to gain access to the other half of his yokai half. For the past month, he had been preparing himself for the conflict. His girlfriends and his other friends have been helping him train for the inevitable conflict. However, Naruto knew brute force, jutsus, and transformations would not be able to help him in this fight. After debating this for the entire month and looking back at everything Yami has told him, Naruto has figured out what Yami is. Or to be more exact, what Yami represents in accordance to Naruto. If he was right, that would make things all a lot more difficult. He has been aware of Yami since he gained his yokai powers, but Yami probably knows everything about Naruto since the day he could remember anything. Meaning nothing he does will surprise him in terms of his arsenal. If he wants to win, then he will have to be more unorthodox. And he may have the perfect way to win. Naruto. The blonde was cut from his musings as he turned to see Ari standing by the doorframe. Are you ready? She asked. Naruto nodded as he got up and they left Tazuna's home to find a secluded area in the forest for this. Once they reach a clearing, Naruto saw an array of seals going in a circle around the clearing. The seals are set just in case anything happens, but I have faith you'll prevail, Kit. Ari proclaimed proudly. Naruto smiled in gratitude. Thanks, Ari-chan. The beautiful vixen smiled at her partner and gave him a soft peck on the lips. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Naruto's cheeks were dusted with a bit of pink as he nodded and sat in a meditative position. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes as he took the surroundings of his inner mind. He looked forward to seeing Yami staring at him with a maniacal grin. Hello Hikari, I am glad to see you. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Are you really? Of course, I was honestly expecting you to not come here. Too scared to lose the power you've gained so far. If you really believed I would do that, then you don't know me at all, Naruto replied. Yami shrugged. Touché. But we both know that I know you better than anyone else. Or are you still ignorant to who I am? Naruto scoffed. No, I know who you are. Or at least what you represent. You are my dark half. My inner darkness. You represent all the suffering, hate, rage, and bitterness I felt while growing up in Konoha. That's why I responded so positively to my admitting I hated Konoha. It's because you know, we hate Konoha for what it did to us. That's why I can never forgive it. All the lies, the secrecy, I have had enough of it. Since it's also why part of me wouldn't even care if the village gets destroyed. It's just how I really feel about the village I grew up in. Yami stared at him for several seconds before a smile curled upon his lips. So you finally figured it out. Good. I was worried you were going to say some bullshit about me being fake and that I was lying to you. Naruto shook his head. I have no right to deny your existence. Since by doing so I would be denying a part of myself. Hatred is part of being human. We can mourn, suffer, envy, and of course hate. But we can also love, understand, and forgive. Now Yami looked confused. You just said you can't forgive them, so what do you plan to do? Naruto shook his head. I plan to move forward. I will not forgive them. But I will no longer let my hatred bind me down like chains, like the shackles the village tied to me while I lived there. And that is why I am here. To release the last chain binding me. Yami laughed as he got into a fighting stance. Well, let's see what you can do. No, Naruto said bluntly. The look Yami's was absolutely priceless. He looked completely stunned by the answer, but that quickly gave to anger and confusion. No. What the hell do you mean no? I mean I won't fight you. It would be pointless. Naruto said. What the hell? Did you forget that I hold your power? You won't be able to use the rest without beating me. Yami shouted. Oh, I will get the power, but not by fighting you. But by accepting you. Naruto began walking towards Yami. Yami took a step back in fear as his light counter came closer to him. What are you doing? Stay back. Don't come any closer. He shouted as he began to throw several bolts of electricity at Naruto. The blonde ninja kept walking forward as lightning landed around him, but not one landed a hit on him. To move forward, I need to accept you and everything that entails with it. He says as Yami continues to fire off attacks as they exploded all around Naruto, but never touching him. When Naruto appeared in front of Yami as his dark half was freaking out in fear as he believed that his light half will obliterate him to non-existence. Stay back. Don't come near, he shouted as they turned into whimpers as Naruto loomed over him. Please don't hurt me. However, to the shock of Yami, Naruto hugs him. Yami is frozen in shock, unsure of what to do. But he does eventually return the hug. It's time for our inner conflict to end. What will happen to me? You and I will become one. Because you are me. We make up the light and dark of Naruto Uzumaki. Yin and Yang. Become one. Naruto smiled. Thanks for everything. You kept me going through all those years. But you can rest. Let me take control and we can do this together, Menma. Yami looked at his light counterpart in confusion. Menma. I thought I should give you a name. Better than just Yami. What do you say? Yami thought long and hard before smirking. I like it. Naruto holds out his arm in front of Yami. The dark half looks at the appendage with some apprehension before shaking it with his own. The ground below the two glowed brightly as the symbol of yin and yang appeared below. The two looked down in shock before looking at each other with small smirks. As they showed genuine care towards one another, the eyes of Yami Naruto changed as the black sclera became white and his eyes went from red to blue like his light counterpart. Unknown to the two, there were two orbs above them. One red and the other blue. These represented the divine and yokai gifts that Naruto received from the Shinigami. The union between Naruto's two halves has caused a change with the powers as well. Instead of remaining separate, the two powers felt compelled to merge as well, just like their chosen vessel, and become whole. Become something new. The two powers merged into a bright purple orb that shone brightly as Yami and Hikari Naruto glowed and merged into one as the orb fell into the merging duo. Back in the real world, Naruto gasped as he woke up from his deep meditation. He looks around to see that it was late in the afternoon. He had been in his mind for some time. Ari gets up from reading her book. How did it go? Naruto gave her a smirk. Better than expected, but things seem to be a lot more different than I expected. Naruto lifted his arm as it transformed completely into a dragonic forearm with silver tribal markings as a majestic, almost divine lightning danced around the limb. The two looked at the appendage in wonder. Looks like there are some unexpected consequences to the merger, Ari commented as Naruto smirked in excitement at the new developments and the opportunities that will arise from this change. Odo. How goes the experiments, Kabuto? Orochimaru asked. The hybrid bodies are showing remarkable progress. I have conducted several different combinations of bloodlines we have available. Though I have kept it the merger to two so they can develop sooner. The medical ninja replied. The snake Sanin smirked. Excellent. I am glad Hirako offered his assistance in this case, and I have seen a lot of the combinations you have developed. Very interesting combinations you have made. Kabuto bowed in gratitude. Thank you for the praise, Orochimaru-sama. Now then, how goes your personal project, Orochimaru-sama? It's going quite well, Kabuto. The bloodlines are surprisingly melding together beautifully. However, due to the sheer number I incorporated into this one, it would take close to 10 years before it would be ready, but I am a patient man. I can wait. I will merely have to use some inferior models as my host until my perfect one is ready. That is good news to hear. I was honestly worried the bloodlines would clash with one another. But I am surprised at how many melded together. Especially the Senju samples with the other four. Yes. It just goes to show that my theory of them having a common ancestor is well in fact true. Though I did not expect the Kagaya clan to also be connected, that just makes things all the more interesting. Orochimaru said. How are allies, Kabuto? They are building their forces. Iwa is getting back to the strength they had before the Third War. Though due to how Minato Namikaze crippled them, they will still need time. Kumo has always had a might is right mentality. Kabuto explained. Orochimaru chuckled. The Raikage was always an easy pawn to manipulate. always thinking with his muscles and the head in his pants than the one on his shoulders. One only must see Kumo's 3 failures to kidnap a kunoichi from Konoha. They failed with Kushina Uzumaki and twice with Hinata Hyuga. And yet the Raikage is still obsessed with getting a Hyuga to create a clan in his village. Some would say you have a similar obsession with the Sharingan. Kabuto joked. The difference, Kabuto, is that I understand the value of patience. The Raikage cannot. Orochimaru retorted. I am sure anyone who has met him would agree with you. Well, I did give him some assistance, so now we shall wait. And Danzo? The snake ninja asked, slowly building his forces from all around the elemental nations. His operation should be ready to be implemented in just a few more years. Around 2 or 3, that should give him enough time to have his spies and pawns in all the right locations. What of Sasuke? Orochimaru asked. He was interested in hearing how his future perfect vessel is progressing in his training. He usually monitors his training, but he had been preoccupied in the last couple of days. Kabuto hummed in thought. He is progressing well. Currently, Gurren is helping in his training. He is coming along well with his fire and lightning ninjutsu. With his Sharingan, he is now able to activate it in just a split second and hold it for long periods of time. He has been taking a liking to Kenjutsu and using several other weapons. He's excelling in Genjutsu and using storage seals. He has also been getting more adjusted to the different levels of curse seal after I changed the seal on it so none of the power is limited but he can control the outflow of power. He has been asking about getting a summoning contract for some time now. Orochimaru laughed in amusement. Excellent. We'll let young Sasuke sign the snake contract soon enough. Perhaps he can take further than we ever did. Ah, the possibilities. All in good time, he said with a wicked grin on his face as the two walked into a deeper portion of their lab. Iwa, how goes our new soldiers? The Tsuchikage asked. His messenger bowed to his leader. They are still a bit rough around the edges, but they should be ready in time for our operation. The Earth Shadow nodded. Good, our allies are gathering their strength and we must be ready when the time comes to not only take down Fire Country but Konoha as well. This will be our revenge against the Yellow Flash and his crippling of our forces for over a decade. He chuckled as he imagined the shocked look of his defeated enemies at who was the one to prevail against them. Yes, and we have the most ironic weapon to use against them. The Leaf will suffer for its crimes against Iwa, and their revenge against the Yellow Flash and the Uzumaki will be complete. Kumo, how is Yugito coming along? The Raikage asked. Darui saluted. Sir, she continues to grow stronger under B-sama's tutelage. I nodded. Good. How goes our forces? He asked. They are growing steadily, and our allies are reporting results. I nodded as he dismissed Darui and looked out towards his village. Soon, in just a few more years, I will get what was denied to me. Konoha, how is it going, Haim? Jiraiya asked as he came into her office from the window. Good. All of the clan heirs have been taking their training seriously. Tsunade replied. And when do you plan to speak about Naruto's heritage? Jiraiya asked as he knew that had been a topic during the discussion. In a few years. We agreed to reveal the truth on the day that Naruto would have turned 16. She replied. Fair enough. How goes your apprentices? Sakura and Ino are progressing well. They both have the potential to become great medical ninja. However, they are a long way before they become truly competent. Tenten is struggling a bit, but she has the drive to motivate herself to do better. When I am not able to train them, Shizune is the one teaching them. The girls are also taking lessons from Anko in interrogations, Kurenai in Genjutsu, and Yugao in tracking and weapon usage. Tsunade explained. Jiraiya whistled in an impressed tone. You sure are making them work. I need them to be well-rounded, not just AR being medical nin, but as shinobi in general. The academy and their senseis have been too soft. We have war looming over us and I need them to be ready for the storm that is coming. It will be on their shoulders many will depend on to save the lives of the injured on the battlefield. No more playing around. It's time they start becoming adults. How are the Jonin taking the news? Jiraiya asked. A lot better than expected. All of the senseis of the rookies are especially training hard. Asuma is working on his wind control, and I heard he even took the monkey summon as a way to honor his father. Perhaps we can have a monkey sage in the village. Tsunade said. If he does that, then Asuma would have finally surpassed his father, Jiraiya replied. Tsunade nodded. Kurenai has taken to learning to fight not just in genjutsu but also in ninjutsu with Kakashi, taijutsu with Guy, tracking with Hana, and bukujutsu with Yugao. Enko and Hana are also taking a similar training schedule. Jiraiya shivered. Yeesh. They must be truly sadistic if they go to Guy of all people for training. Kurenai feels immense guilt for what happened to Hinata. She feels that she failed Hinata when she needed her the most. She decided to become a stronger Jonin, but not just in the area of genjutsu, but well-rounded in all areas. The slug Sanin explained. Well damn. That was all Jiraiya could say. Tsunade snorted. If you think she's crazy, you should look at Kakashi. Besides everything else he's doing, he's training and sparring with Guy regularly, and when he's not doing that, he's throwing himself into every available Anbu training regimen he can get into. Jiraiya shivered as he whistled in amazement. Wow. He knew how challenging Guy's training regimen was, and adding Anbu on top of it. It's borderline suicide. Speaking of training, how goes your sage training? Tsunade asked. Jiraiya sighed in slight annoyance and disappointment. It's going slow. After all, it's been years since I have trained in the sage arts, so this is going to take some time. Tsunade nodded. Same with me. Though my issue is that I have never tried to master sage mode and I need time between my apprentices and being a kage. So, I have limited options. I may have to use shadow clones to free up my schedule as much as possible to train. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. That's probably your best solution. My only news is that Kumo and Iwa are building up their forces for something. And not just about a possible invasion. I am hearing that they are planning something crazy. But what that is, I have no idea. Then we will just have to prepare for the worst, Tsunade replied. Yeah, and pray we will walk out from all this in one piece. He said as he jumped out of the office with Tsunade screaming at him to use the door. Unknown location. A young voice uttered as she regained consciousness. Her vision focuses on a ceiling that is foreign to her. She looks around to find herself in a well-kept room with a single bed and 2 windows to her left and a small drawer to the right. Where am I? She wonders to herself. The last thing I remember is, her eyes widen. No. She tried to get up but immediately regretted it as she felt pain flare up throughout her entire body. The girl grunted as she laid back down. She slowly pulled off her covers to see her entire chest, arms, and legs covered in bandages. That was a terrible idea. She thought in regret. None of it was a dream. It was all real. She bit her lip in frustration as tears nearly slipped out of her eyes. Just where in the world am I? She grunted out loud. I can answer that for you. A voice suddenly said. The girl turned to see a young woman with raven hair in a hime cut with bright green eyes walking towards her. She wore a form-fitting shinobi outfit with a headband with an unfamiliar symbol. Who are you? The girl asked. The young shinobi girl smirked. I should be the one asking you that since I found you heavily injured in the forest near my home, but I will humor you. My name is Shizuka and you are in Nadeshiko no Sato. Now, who are you? The girl's eyes widened as she recognized the place she was in. Now she wondered what she should do. She couldn't lie and she was in no position to refuse after their hospitality, and she was in no shape to go anywhere, especially her old home. Guess I have no choice but, to be honest, and hope I am not thrown to the wolves. My name is Kuretsuchi. I was originally from Iowa, but Hidden Rain Village. How do you feel, Nagato? Conan asked. Nagato looked at his renewed body as he walked on his own with his legs after several years without use. Incredible. I feel like I have not aged a day. I should have done this sooner. Do you plan to stop using the paths of pain? The paper ninja asked, as that had been his main use of combat for so long. No, I will continue to use them. But now I will no longer have to rely on them. Once I master this new body of mine, I will ensure that I will feel little strain in using the paths or my own body. Plus, I think it's time I start learning about my family's abilities. He replied as his friend nodded and the two left the chamber they were in. Unbeknownst to them, a familiar man with an orange spiral mask was hearing their entire conversation. Good. Good. Get stronger, Nagato. After all, it will be all for my ambition. This world will be mine. The man said as he disappeared in a swirl. In a faraway location, in the clearing of a large forest, a battle was taking place. Come now, gentlemen, surely you can do better than this. I would be disappointed otherwise, said a smooth metallic voice. The man who spoke was covered from head to toe in armor. His face was covered in a metallic helmet with a golden crown with a silver metallic mask. Even his eyes were not truly visible unless the man was planning to attack. In the man's hands were a pair of beautiful blades that resembled katanas with golden guards that were curved upwards and downwards. Finally, there were 2 red jewels on both sides of the guard. Around him, there were close to 100 bandits surrounding him, though they seem more scared of him than the reverse. This is understandable as the man in armor had slaughtered more than half the forces when they crossed paths, and the craziest thing is that the armored warrior did in just under 2 minutes. Get him, you idiots. We kill him and see his armor and weapons, and we will be set for life. The leader proclaimed. The armored man sighed. Human greed will never know its limits. Especially in the face of death. Don't you agree, my blades? He asked as he looked at the 2 blades in his hands that seemed to hum in agreement. The bandits charged at the armored warrior as he was covered in a dark blue aura, as eyes glowed a similar deep shade of azure. Weaklings like you are no challenge and only deserve a one-way ticket to hell. Winged angel of death. A bright golden flash illuminated the dark forest for several seconds, but as soon as the light came it vanished. There was utter silence. All that remained of the conflict except for a large crater with the armored warrior standing in the middle of. The warrior sighed. How disappointing. He sheathed his swords as the skies turned dark and rain began to drizzle onto the battlefield. Is there really no one that challenges me and my soul swords? The masked asked aloud as he walked into the dark depths of the forests and disappeared.